Good morning and welcome to your early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, here with some words of wisdom to start your day off well. And I hope you're all having a good day so far. We're probably not too far into the day, depending on where you are. If you're some of my Australia buddies, then it might be time for bed. But we again have a section out of Taking the War Out of Our Words. And I was kind of surprised the same book came up twice, but it did. So, and the page that I opened to is about asking questions. So I have some interesting thoughts on that, but we'll give it a minute for people to pop on. And we'll do a little tapping and a little breath. Just today, I think focusing on grounding, settling in. People are getting kind of, rushed because of the holidays. I made the mistake of going to Walmart last night on my way to a dinner just to return something, and the parking lot was craziness. So it was very fast. I got in and got out of there in about less than 10 minutes. So I was quite happy about that. So I'm hoping I'm not on the wrong page. I looked at the little icon in the corner and I believed it was just me, because on my personal page it's a picture of me with my daughter, so I think I'm in the right place. We shall see. Anywho, maybe it's just because it's cold out, nobody got up early. So, Taking the War Out of Our Words, The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication by Sharon Ellison. This is one of those books that if you make it a Bible, it's going to be helpful. Good morning, Nancy. Glad you're here. I was beginning to wonder if I was on my wrong page again. And look at all the cute little snowmen. What fun. There's Barb. Good morning, good morning. Glad you are here. Welcome. Now everybody's starting to roll in. Maybe I was a little bit early, and I haven't been early in quite some time. So good morning. Glad you're here. I have on about 12 layers. I think it's supposed to get reasonably warm today, like 34. Yeah, so if I decide I have to go get groceries before the holiday instead of waiting till the day before when it'll be a zoo, at least I won't freeze. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad you are here. So let us start with a little tapping and some breath. Focused on grounding. Yeah, just as I put my feet not flat on the floor. Focused on grounding. Breathing in through the nose. Out through the mouth. Letting your shoulders drop. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Wiggling your neck a little bit. Listening to the creaks. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Good morning, Beth. Glad you are here. And one more. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Good morning, good morning. Glad you're here. So as others are rolling in, we'll just take a moment to peruse this part of the book. For those of you who have the book, this is on page 96. And it's in the chapter called The Question. So the first thing I want to say about questions is we have been trained to be awfully interrogatory with our questions. We interrogate people. Well, why this and why that? And why? Watch the word why, because oftentimes why comes with a tone. So even if you just changed why to how come, you'll find that the question sounds different. Well, why would you do it that way? How come you chose to do it that way? Good morning, Mary. Glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. Even just that shift of a word or two makes a difference. Why ends up being very interrogatory. So we're going to just shift to how come? How come? When we're asking someone for why they believe a certain thing, if you say, how come you believe that? Help me understand. Where's that coming from? You get a different response than if you say, well, why do you believe that? Even that little bit in your voice is enough to set people off, especially if there's a long history of setting people off. So some of the stories that I'm going to share today, they're decades long. It's decades long of this kind of interaction with somebody, and merely changing the question changed the whole outcome and the whole thing moving forward. The other thing about questions, when I was back in the day, when I was a graduate student, good morning, thank you for the coffee and the Christmas tree. We were being trained in this method that helped parents shift from asking questions to doing something else. So usually what the something else was description. So this was working mostly with toddlers. So they'd be in a room on the floor playing, the parent and the child. I'd be behind a one-way mirror. They'd have a little bug in their ear, and I could talk to the parent and give them suggestions for what to say and how to say it. So instead of saying, well, why are you piling those blocks up? And kids don't like much sometimes to be questioned, especially if it's one question after another, after another, after another. And many of us, that's how we communicate, is through asking questions. You can just shift it to description. So the word I would use is description. Now you're picking up the blue block. Now you've got the yellow block. Now you're piling the blue block on the yellow block. You're just describing what they're doing. And it's real easy to slip back into questions, but just focus on description. So if you're standing in the kitchen and you're watching one person at Christmas make the whole meal, you could say, I see you're trying to stir the gravy and take things out of the oven, and I will take the turkey out of the oven. So it's statements. It's offering to help, but it's not, what would you like me to do? Because then people tend to fluff you off, right? No, I've got it all, as they're balancing 8,000 things, right? So you can do the description, which lets them know that you realize they're trying to do 12 things at once, but you're not saying to them, you're trying to do 12 things at once. Let me help you. It comes across different. It just comes across different. So on page 96, the section here is asking for clarification. So it is indeed questions, but note the difference. As I'm reading these examples, note the difference in the quality of the questions. Asking for clarification. Many of us frequently phrase things in such a way that we don't say what we mean. Let's take the example of a friend or family member who says, you haven't called for so long that I thought you didn't care anymore. Now, if you were on the receiving end of that comment, would that get you to bristle a little bit? Probably. We might react intensely to this implication if we have supported this person over the years. Rather than just going with our initial reaction, we can first ask, do you believe that if I haven't called you recently, it means that I don't care about you? Good morning, Gwen. Glad you're here. You ask the question. Fundamentally, you know that that isn't what the person meant, but you're putting them in the position of having to own what they've said and how it's coming across. Do you believe that if I haven't called you recently, it means that I don't care about you? Here, we ask our friend to confirm, deny, or qualify the statement. The immediate reply may be, well, I do know you care. I was just missing you a lot and wishing you would call. Good morning, Carolyn. Glad you're here. This clarification causes a huge shift to occur. Could you feel the shift between those two statements? Let me try it again. You haven't called in so long that I thought you didn't care anymore. I know you care. I was missing you and wishing you would call. Doesn't that set the call off on a different tone? One moment ago, we were talking to a friend who thought we didn't care. Now we are talking to one who has been missing us. We have moved from blame and alienation to caring and connection in a few seconds. Sometimes one question can clarify and resolve a serious misunderstanding that might go completely unnoticed for years. Molly told me a story about a conversation she had with her 4-year-old daughter, who was attending preschool in the country. She usually encouraged Allison to wear pants to school, while her husband Stan, to her surprise and frustration, encouraged the child to wear a dress, sometimes even a long skirt. When they argued over it, Molly would say, Allison plays on a jungle gym and sometimes rides a horse at preschool. How do you expect her to be active like that in a long skirt? Her question was designed to convince him to agree, but never produced an answer that satisfied her. In the car on the way to school one day, Allison frowned and said, "You always want me to wear pants, and Daddy wants me to wear a skirt." Instead of her following her urge to defend her reasons, Molly asked Allison, "Why do you think Daddy wants you to wear a skirt and I want you to wear pants?" Allison's answer, "He wants me to be a girl and you want me to be a boy," left Molly speechless. She was delighted at having a daughter and had simply thought Allison would have more freedom of movement in jeans. She proceeded to talk to Allison about her difference in opinion with Stan in a way that satisfied Allison that her mom was glad she was a girl. Molly said, "Thank God I asked her that question. She might have ended up spending a fortune on therapy someday because of some vague feeling that I had wanted her to be a boy." On the morning of the second day of a workshop, Tony announced she had a story for us. After learning about non-defensive questions, she had gone right home and called her partner, Geraldo, who was living in New York. They had talked about his moving to Illinois, where she resided, because his job skills were more portable than hers. Not wanting him to feel pressured to move, she had told him during a recent call, "You don't have to move out here if you don't want to." He met her comment with dead silence, changed the subject, and seemed withdrawn during the rest of the conversation. She didn't ask him anything more because she assumed, here's the assumption, the fatal assumption, from his reaction that he really didn't want to move. Good morning, Jonelle. Glad you're here. Ever since the conversation, she had been struggling with her own sadness. She's making the assumption he doesn't want to move. After the first session of the workshop, Tony decided to ask Geraldo to clarify his reaction. He explained, "When my first wife got a job in another city, she told me, 'You don't have to move if you don't want to.' Shortly afterward, she asked me for a divorce." Ooh. Tony burst out laughing from relief as she told us this story. Had she not asked that single clarifying question, Tony might have backed off, assuming he didn't want to move, right? And not talked about plans for the move as much. Geraldo might have subsequently confirmed in his mind that she didn't want him to come and backed off as well. The assumptions they each made could have led them to becoming increasingly strained and distant from each other, resulting in a self-fulfilling prophecy that manifested both of their fears. Wowzers. And I can tell you, 40 years of working with marital couples are smug. They often like to assume that they know what their partner is thinking. And while sometimes that might be true, they know their partner very well, especially after living together a long time. Oftentimes they were wrong. And so I'd ask the clarifying question of one spouse, and the other spouse would go, "Really? I didn't know that's what you were thinking. I thought you meant blah, 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 blah." Amazing. Amazing the number of times they had inaccurate assumptions. So, the other piece that I want to talk about here is holding others accountable. Our questions can hold people accountable. And I remember one of these from a while ago. There was and I didn't ask the question, but I thought it in my mind, and now I wish I had asked it. There were three of us at a table at a coffee house. Myself, a woman who's a little bit older than me, and a woman who's significantly younger. She's in her 30s. And we were sitting there, we were talking about the housing stuff. And a young man, probably in his, I think he said he was in his late 20s, came over, wanted to join our conversation, and one of his comments was, "I'm so glad to hear that people your age are interested in this stuff." I wish I had said to him, "What do you assume people of my age are interested in?" Just to get a sense, because he was painting with that broad brush that most of us like to use, well, young people these days are all blah, blah, blah. Old people these days are all blah, blah, blah. Well, women believe this and men believe that. Chunking everybody into a group. And our brains do the chunking as a way to manage all the information that's coming in. But again, oftentimes it's off base. And if we ask the clarifying questions, we can discern, is this something this person believes? Is it not something this person believes? And we make assumptions about labels. If we label somebody liberal or conservative, we assume it means they believe a plethora of stuff that probably isn't accurate. Better to ask a question and check it out. So this part is holding others accountable through asking those questions. And in this particular part, again, our primary thing is watching our own reactivity, because the question can come out awfully snarky and snipey. We want it to be as neutral as possible. So we may need to take a breath. We may need to tap a little bit. We may need to do the hold, please. I'm going to run to the ladies' room. I'll be right back. And when we come back, we've regained control over our reactivity and can ask the question. So here's some examples. Holding others accountable. We can directly ask a person to address issues regarding individual responsibility and motivation. After Gordon realized that he was taking on too much of Selma's share of the workload and his exhaustion was causing problems at home, he decided to talk to her. The next time they met, he asked, and notice the tone here, "Do you believe I am doing more than my share on the projects that we've worked on?" Selma took a deep breath and replied, "Yes, and I've been feeling very guilty about it." Gordon said his eyes almost popped out. He was fully expecting her to retort, "No, what is your problem?" Because of the irritation she had shown whenever he talked with her about project tasks, he did not believe she would admit or even care that he was doing more work. Having been asked a direct question in a non-threatening way, she took more responsibility for her behavior. In asking her to address this issue directly, Gordon also demonstrated more willingness to hold her accountable in a positive way for not sharing the workload equally. If Gordon's question had been intended to get Selma to admit that he was doing more work than she was, it would have been entrapping. How often do we ask entrapping questions? All the time. All the time. During the course of the day today, listen to the quality of your questions. When you're talking to your people, listen to the quality of your questions and note when there's that little edge in there that's designed to hook them. Okay? Let's see. Instead, the sincerity of his question drew out Selma's honest answer. And now they have the opportunity to go from there and figure out, okay, how do we adjust this workload? I find that most people are much more careful about answering a respectful question that leaves them accountable for their response. Sally had begun to work on her own defensiveness, and one day when Marcus seemed upset, and Sally and Marcus were the ones where he'd get upset and he'd withdraw. Good morning, Diane. Glad you're here. And she would badger him. We have to talk about this. We have to talk about this. We have to talk about this. Sound familiar to anybody? Yeah. She asked him very gently. One day when he seemed upset, she asked him very gently, "Are you going to refuse to talk to me if I ask you what is wrong?" Neutral. Sally reported that Marcus sat stone silent for a while, and then it was as if the stone melted and tears streamed down his face. We had the best talk we've ever had. That one question prompted him to give serious consideration to his own willingness to talk, and accomplished what all her coaxing and angry tirades over a decade could not. Simple shift. Simple shift. Not easy, but simple. Okay. Non-defensive questions can also be effective in cases where a person suspects he is being treated with prejudice, like all of the lumping you people together that we just talked about. Floyd, a Native American who had recently graduated with a master's degree in social work, had gone to a district school office in a suit and tie to apply for a job at the local high school as a counselor to gangs. After giving him a bare glance, the woman behind the counter announced, "We aren't taking applications for bus drivers right now." Floyd felt angry and humiliated that she would assume he was applying for a job that did not require a college degree. When he tersely told her what job he was applying for and took the application, she acted cool and unapologetic. Feeling that he would make things worse by showing anger, he walked away furious. To hold the woman more accountable for her own assumption, Floyd might have respectfully requested that she clarify her meaning. He might have asked, "Why do you assume I am here to apply for a job as a bus driver?" She then has the responsibility for clarification. She can either expose and struggle with her own prejudice, or she can explain some other reason for her remark. She could say, "Well, the last 3 people in here were looking to be bus drivers. I just assumed you were too." Could be. And if she said that, then he can let go of some of his upset over probably a lifetime of being treated differently because he's Native, right? By holding people accountable for what they say, we can keep our own dignity regardless of how they respond. So, let me know in the feed what was useful out of this. The questions to hold people accountable, the questions asking for clarification. Again, I love all the little stories because it helps us see how we could use some of this in our own life, right? So think about this. This season right now, people are in helpful mode, aren't they? They'll hold doors. There's the people who are angry and hostile and yeah. But there's the people who are doing a little more for others because 'tis the season, right? We make assumptions about some of that stuff. So if somebody holds a door for me, I might think, oh, they're just in holiday mode. Have a Merry Christmas. Or I might think, he thinks I'm too old to hold that door for myself. Who does he think he is? Blah, blah. We make assumptions. So we could clarify that. And we could ask, "I see you're holding the door for me." And he might say, "Yep, I'm feeling particularly charitable today." Whatever it is, who knows? But it could help clarify so that you don't do the "he assumes I can't do it" thing. What stood out for you here? What was helpful in asking these questions, seeing these little vignettes? I'd love to get some ideas of what your thought process is with regard to this, or how you might be able to use it, and with whom. So tomorrow, after doing my early morning intuitive guidance, that's tomorrow, right? Yeah, it's Sunday. I will be driving to Green Bay to have breakfast with a friend and get some Mary Kay product from her that I need to finish an order. Then I'm driving to Marinette to have lunch with my daughter, her partner's mom, and her partner's stepmom. So we're going to be planning the shower that my daughter pretty much already has planned anyway because it quelled her anxiety. She is her mother's daughter. And I can see in the course of that process, some of this questioning might be very helpful, like eliciting from her, "Yes, I was so anxious I couldn't stand it, so I had to do it." Because the other 2 women don't really know her all that well. And who knows what assumptions they might have made. She's a control freak. She doesn't think we can set up a shower well enough for her. Blah, blah, blah. Who knows what they think? So there may be some of these clarifying kinds of questions that can help that conversation go better. Then I'm driving back, dropping off said Mary Kay order, and coming home and warming up. So tomorrow's going to be a busy day. So today I'm planning on laying low and not doing much. Might hit the grocery store depending on just because it's going to be warm today. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these particular sections that I read today and how you might apply them going forth. Have an awesome Saturday. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.